Having discussed raga and tala, we are ready to enter the world of khayal. Khayal is a name for both the genre and the compositional form used in it. Khayal, the genre, is a particular aesthetic of the coming together of composition and improvisation. Khayal includes compositional forms, the most prominent of which are also called khayal. There is khayal, as I said, it's a type of composition. It's also the name of the genre. In this video, we will look at khayal, the composition, as a compositional form. Composition in khayal, all kinds of composition, they have the generic term bandish or cheese. Specifically, the various kinds of composition that are used in khayal are khayal itself, tarana, chaturanga, and so on. But khayal compositions form the most prominent bulk of the repertoire of khayal, the genre. Khayal compositions are always set in a particular raga and tala with text in Braj, Awadhi, which are dialects of Hindi, or even Punjabi. And they can be about many themes. Let us look at the text of a very well known, very widely performed bandish in Rag Yaman from the world of Khayal. And this is set in the Tal, Teen Tal. The text is like this. Sthayi, which is the first part of the composition, goes like this. Eri ali piya bina sakhi kalana parat muthe ghari pala china dina. Then the antara, or the second part of the composition, goes like this. Jab se piya parades gavan kino ratiya katatu mure tare gina gina. So a khayal bandish is very short, compared to a Dhrupad composition or a Carnatic composition. It's typically only 4 lines long and 4 avartanas long, 4 time cycles. And it is divided into 2 parts, the sthayi, which usually remains in the madhya saptak or the middle range, and the antara, which typically soars into the higher ranges, the tar saptak. Lyrics are simple in terms of prosody. There is often the last syllables of the sthayi and antara rhyme, as in this case, as in the case of the bandish that I just discussed. There may be an alliteration or what is called prasha. But really there are no prosodic rules or expectations regarding the poetry of the text of khayal compositions. In the above khayal, the Nayika or the heroine tells her friend that without my love, piya bina, I am restless. And ever since he went away, my nights are spent counting the stars. So, very simple, unpretentious. It is not high poetry. But it packs a lot of music into it and can unlock more, because the bandish in khayal is the anchor around which the raga is explored through various strategies of improvisation. The crux of this is the mukhada of the bandish, which leads to the sum, which is the first matra of the tal. I will demonstrate. Please watch the demonstration. So I'll be demonstrating with an app. Before apps, we had electronic devices which were very useful for practice and even for demonstration. So these are apps that stand in for the actual tanpura or for the actual tabla. So these apps and electronic devices would give us the tanpura sound or even the tabla thekas. And the app that I'm going to be using today has the tanpura, as you can hear. It also has the tabla and many other things with a wide range of options. And the reason I'm using this is because it is easy, it will give you a visual aid. So you can actually see the matras, the number of the matra. So because I want to demonstrate how khayals are set in tal, this can be very useful because you can actually see the number of the matras as and it goes in cycles. Now for you it will be a visual aid, but I will still only be following the sound of the theka. So I'm not going to be looking at the app. The app is for your reference, but I'll be hearing it. So here goes. I'll first sing Eri Ali Piabin with the app, and I'll show you how it's set in tal. Now this is teen tal, and I'm going to play tin da da tin da tin da da tin 5 6 9 10 11 12 13 14 15. Now this starts on the 9th beat. Eri Ali Piabin Sakhi Eri Ali Piabin Sakhi Eri Ali Piabin Sakhi Khalana Parat Mohe Ghari Pad Chinadin Khalana Parat Mohe Ghari Pad Chinadin Eri Ali Piabin Sakhi Eri Ali Piabin. So this is the bare sthayi, the first part of the composition. The antara, that is the second part, also starts from the 9th matra. जब से पिया परदेस गवन किनो, जब से पिया परदेस गवन किनो, रतिया कटत मोरे तारे गिन गिन, रतिया कटत मोरे तारे गिन गिन, रतिया कटत मोरे तारे गिन गिन, Eri Ali Piabin Sakhi Eri Ali Piabin. Now in this Eri Ali Pia, that is the what is called the mukhada of the composition of the sthayi. What is the mukhada? Mukhada is the phrase of the song, of the composition that leads into the sum. The first, so there is a mukhada of the sthayi, there is a mukhada for the antara. So the first line of the sthayi will have a phrase which will land on the sum. Will have a text. In this case, it's Eri Ali P. The sum is on Pia, right? The syllable P falls on the first beat, which is the sum. So, Eri Ali P. Eri Ali Piabin. Now, this is the mukhada. Eri Ali Pia. That is a mukhada. In the antara, it is Jab se Pia Parades, because the sum falls on Des. जब से पिया परदे. Now this mukhada is all important in a khayal presentation, and I will talk more about it later, but what I want to say is every khayal of course expresses, it brings out a certain facet of the raga. Every khayal is also a very unique setting in that particular tal. So there are hundreds of bandishes, hundreds of khayals in teen tal, and dozens of khayals, even hundreds of khayals in Yaman itself in teen tal. How are they different? They are different because how the composition is set in the tal also. And I will now demonstrate a couple more compositions in Yaman in teen tal to show how the compositions are set differently. The khayal, as I said, is in Yaman. It is in Madhyalay or slightly faster Durut, teen tal. But the setting in tal is different. So that's what makes for a variety of khayals which in turn offer different possibilities for the unfoldment of the raga. So this was Eni Alipia Bin. This is at 150 beats per minute. It's not something that a musician, a khayal singer is not concerned with that actually. It's very subjective. Today I'm singing at 150 beats per minute, tomorrow I'm missing at 160, day after I'm missing at 140. That is not anything fixed. But today this composition I sang in 150 beats per minute. Now the next composition is generally rendered at a faster speed. I like to render it at a faster laya. And the mukhada is also different. So I'll just increase the speed. This is at 175 beats per minute. The words are मैं वारी वारी जाऊंगी प्रीतम पासे. And the mukhada is on the 12th beat. मैं वारी वारी जाऊंगी, मैं वारी वारी जाऊंगी, मैं वारी वारी जाऊंगी प्रीतम पासे, मैं वारी वारी जाऊंगी प्रीतम पासे, कब आवेंगे मोर मंदरवा, कब आवेंगे मोर मंदरवा, मैं वारी वारी जाऊंगी प्रीतम पासे, वारी वारी जाऊंगी. Now in this case, the antara starts on a different matra. In the previous composition, both sthayi and antara started on the 9th matra. In this case, the sthayi starts on the 12th matra, whereas the antara will start on the 9th matra. Hulaban sej, hulaban sej sajaungi vama, hulaban sej sajaungi vama, hulaban sej sajaungi vama, hulaban sej sajaungi vama, hara darungi harwa, vari vari jaungi. So it is a completely different setting. The same tal, a completely different set of words, text is different. The setting in tal is also different. Now another composition also in teen tal. The words are Sukhadata, Sabanike Shankar. This is in praise of Lord Shiva. The other two were Shringara based, romance. This is devotional Khayal. Now this starts on the 14th beat. The mukhada is only 4 matras long. Sukhadata Sabanake Shankara, Sukhadata Sabanake Shankara, Sukhadata Sabanake Shankara, Sukhadata Sabanake Shankara, Digambara Trambakesha Tripurahara Trata Tuhi Tribhuvanake Shankara, Sukhadata. So this is how Every composition offers a different set of possibilities for the performer to improvise, to present the raga. So now, as I said, the mukhada is all important in a khayal presentation, or for that matter, even in instrumental music. See, this is what the musicians constantly return to establish structure in their presentation, to create tension and resolution. And the important thing about mukhada is that, as I said, it has to land on the sum. So, if I were to go back to the first composition that I sang, Eri Ali Piya Bina. So, this is a little faster than what I sang earlier. This is at 160 beats per minute. Eri Ali Piya Bina, Sakhi Eri Ali Piya Bina. So, the mukhada, as I told you, is Eri Ali Piya is a mukhada. And the sum falls on the syllable P. P. Bin Sakhi Eri Ali Piya. And as the composition is set, the mukhada starts on the 9th beat. But in presentation, the mukhada is varied to varying degrees, depending on the musician, depending on the school also. Some schools prefer to not vary the mukhada much. Others vary it all the time. Now, as a musician, I vary the mukhada all the time. So, please try to observe how I vary the mukhada each time. The variation can come from the matra where I pick up the mukhada. It can come in the melodic setting of the mukhada. But what will not vary is that the sum will always, the word P, the letter P of Piya will always fall on the sum or the first beat of the tal. That will not vary. But where I pick up the mukhada, how I render it, those things can vary. Eri Ali Piya Bin Sakhi 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 Eri Ali Piya. Now, all these variations, trust me, were created on the spur of the moment. That's what we train for. That's what we practice. And in presentation, in the heat of the concert or of a performance, so many other variations can strike the musician. You could listen to a performance of the same bandish by Sanjeev Abhyankar at the link given below. Now, in every raga, there are hundreds of bandishes, and a good musical training includes learning many bandishes in every raga, which gives a handle over different facets of the raga, different mukhadas to arrive at the sum, different talas, themes, composers, and so on. Now, composers of Khayal or Dhrupad, for that matter, are called Vaggayakaras. That is Vak plus Geya plus Karas. There is those who make both the Vak and the Geya. Vak means text in this context, and Geya means that which is sung. So, the Vaggayakara is one who composes both the song text and the music for the composition, and often it is as a single spontaneous act, or at least the kernel of the bandish usually emerges as a whole. That is, the lyrics and the music are an integral whole, and it's generally believed, and it is generally true also, that they are composed simultaneously. It's a spontaneous act of simultaneity. The oldest Vagyakara in Khayal are certainly Niyamat Khan Sadarang and his nephew Firoz Khan, whose signature was Adarang. The uh, very first video, the very first lesson of this course started with a composition of Sadarang in Rag Bihag, if you remember. Now, perhaps it was a tribute to their patron, the Mughal Emperor Muhammad Shah Rangila, that these two composers incorporated the word Rang in their signatures. So, we have Sadarang and we have Adarang. But ever since then, many Vagyakaras have adopted the Rang part of the signature, and so we have many Khayal compositions with one or the other Rang signature, such as Prem Rang, Dilarang, Manarang, Sabarang, Hararang, etc. We also have Vagyakara signing off with Piya, such as Pran Piya, Prem Piya, and so on, Daras Piya. We have hundreds of bandishes composed by these Vagyakaras that are in circulation, and we probably have many more that are unfortunately lost. Now, broadly, we have two kinds of Khayal compositions, the Bada Khayal or the big Khayal and the Chota Khayal or the small Khayal. The former, that is the Bada Khayal, is always Vilambit, that is, it is sung at a very slow speed. If you remember, there is the three layas, right? Vilambit, Madhya and Drut. So, Bada Khayal is always a Vilambit Khayal. It is sung at a very slow speed. The Chota Khayal can be in Madhya Laya or Drut Laya. What follows is a demonstration of a few Chota Khayals to show the different ways in which bandishes are created. So, I'll first present two bandishes of Sadarang, Niyamat Khan. Chota Khayal, both are in Madhya Laya, Teen Tal. The first is Gore Mukhaso More Manibhave. It's a description of a beautiful woman, and the composer says that a glimpse of her beautiful face brings him great joy. That's the message, the idea behind the composition. The text is like this. Now, in this, the sthayi, the mukhada of the sthayi starts on the 10th beat, 10th matra. So, suppose, and the antara. So, I mean, this and sthayi and antara the mukhadas can start on different matras, not necessarily the same matra. Though usually it's the case that both sthayi and antara, they start off on the same matra, but sometimes they can be different, as in this composition. So, in this, the sthayi mukhada starts on the 10th beat, 10th matra, and the antara mukhada starts on the sum itself, or just after the sum. Now, both the compositions that I am going to sing are in Vim Plus, just to show how compositions are subtly differently set in the same tal. Both are in Teen Tal. Gore mukh so more छुप दर्शन अतहि सुहावे, दुख छुप दर्शन अतहि सुहावे, गोरे मुख सो मोरे मन भावे, दुख छुप दर्शन अतहि सुहावे, गोरे मुख सो मोरे मन अतहि सुहावे, गोरे मुख सो मोरे मन भावे। नयन मिरग सम चंद्रमुखी, नयन मिरग सम चंद्रमुखी, मिरग सम चंद्रमुखी, चंद्रमुखी, नयन मिरग सम चंद्रमुखी, नयन मिरग सम चंद्रमुखी, बदन सदा रंगमन, बदन कामलत सदा रंगमन, चांदवे गोरे मुख सो मोरे मन भावे, 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 गोरे मुख सो गोरे मुख गोरे मुख सो गोरे मुख सो मोरे मन भावे, दुख छुप दर्शन अतहि सुहावे, गोरे मुख सो, गोरे मुख सो, गोरे मुख सो मोरे मन The next bandish, also in Bhimpalas and Tintal, it is also around the theme of romance or Shrangara. The words are Jajare apne mandarva. Both these compositions are, as I said, composed nearly 300 years old, and they are widely performed, very beloved compositions in Rag Bhimplas. Now, while the first composition, Gauri Mukhas, was started on the 10th matra, this starts on the 7th matra. And the text is such, the play of words is such that it offers interesting variation in the mukhada itself. The words are Jajare Apne Mandarva, as I said, and it starts on the 7th matra. 1, 2, 3, start. A little faster. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Ja ja re apne mandir ma, ja ja re apne mandir ma, ja ja re apne mandir. So you see how many variations of ja ja re itself is possible. That's the beauty of this English. Ja ja re apne, 1, 2, 3, 4. Ja ja re apne mandir ma, ja ja re apne mandir ma, ja ja re apne mandir, ja ja re apne mandir ma, ja ja re apne mandir ma, ja ja re apne mandir ma, ja ja re apne mandir ma. Sun pavegi saas nadiya, ja ja re apne mandir. Sun pavegi saas nadiya, ja ja re apne mandir. Ja 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 re, ja ja re, ja ja re apne mandir, ja 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 re, ja re apne mandir, ja ja re apne mandir, ja ja re apne mandir ma, ja ja re apne. सुनहु सदा रंग तुमको चाहत, सुनहु सदा रंग तुमको चाहत, सुनहु सदा रंग सदा रंग सुनहु सदा रंग तुमको चाहत, noticed that typically when we finish a bandish, when we want to end the presentation, we present what is called a sthayi. There is the same phrase is repeated thrice so that it lands on the sum. In this case, it was ja ja re apne man, ja ja re apne man, ja ja re, ja ja re, ja ja re apne man. So this is a very commonly found presentational technique that you find in many parts of Khayal and also instrumental music or even Dhrupad for that matter. So repeating a phrase or a pattern thrice to find some kind of resolution, that is called a sthayi. Now I will present another composition again in Bhimpalas, but this time in Drut Ektal, and it's a composition of Adarang. There is Firoz Khan, who was the nephew of Niamat Khan Adarang, and this is a Drut Bandish, and this starts on the 7th beat. This is Drut Ektal, so it is Dhin 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 Dhagi Parkatuna Dhagi Dhin Dhin Dhagi Parkatuna Dhagi starts here. Listen, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 1. Lagi 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 प्रीत तुम्ही सन lagi 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 lagi